First up is Fire Island, which is written by and stars Joel Kim Booster. It is basically Pride and Prejudice, but with a modern day twist. It is a self-professed Austen adaptation, so I'm not just comparing it arbitrarily. It's set on Fire Island, which if you're not familiar with Fire Island, it's basically a gay vacation playland where over the summer in particular, people from the queer community flock there. It is just a big old raging party. And so Fire Island, the film, takes place there and it modernizes the story of Pride and Prejudice. So you have Joel Kim Booster in basically the Lizzie Bennet role, and then you have Bowen Yang as Jane Bennet, and I mean, essentially Jane Bennet. Obviously, he's not actually playing Jane Bennet, but I think the thing that works the most about Fire Island for me is that the actors clearly all have chemistry and knew each other before or very quickly picked up relationships. You know, if you're familiar with them in the outside world, you know that a lot of them are actually friends. Some of them have podcasts together and they just appear on each other's. So basically, there's an authenticity to a lot of the social interactions that I think is really at the heart of it and that really sells it. And then it's also fun to see a modernized Pride and Prejudice. You know, it's a story we've seen multiple times, but I do think the film does a very good job of adapting it to modern times and to the gay in particular community. You know, at a certain point, when I realized in my brain, I was like, oh, this is literally Pride and Prejudice. I was able to be like, okay, I'm going to map this person's behaviors, but how are they going to do this? And so it was a fun journey. I think it's pretty well adapted. It also, as I said, it stars Joel Kim Booster and Bowen Yang. And then you've also got Conrad Ricamora, Zane Phillips, Matt Rogers, James Scully, Nick Adams, Margaret Cho's in it, Tomás Matos, and Torian Miller. And it's fun, it's light, it's breezy. You know, it's a quick film. It's not as if we haven't seen Pride and Prejudice in a million iterations before, but it's also, there's a reason that we've seen it adapted so many times. People connect to the story, and I think this is a well-done adaptation of it. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel here, but we are bringing a modern spin to it. There were a couple points, and I don't want to spoil them, but I was like, oh, what are they going to do for this part of it? And I think what it will do is it'll also capture this moment in time, sort of the modern day, sort of a snapshot of what it's like, and also internet community and the queer community and all these things. It will be very much of the current times, and that's not a bad thing, right? Like, you know, we've seen classic Pride and Prejudice, like the BBC adaptation and the Joe Wright one, which are very traditional, and I think those, obviously they were made much later, but they are capturing those moments in time. I think this one will serve as a pretty successful modern version of it. And, you know, just from a personal standpoint, I absolutely love that not only did we get to see a bunch of Asian representation on screen, but you have even doubly diverse Asian representation, you know, between Margaret Cho, Bowen Yang, and Joel Kim Booster. This may have been the most Asian queerness we've seen on screen in quite a while. So kudos to them for doing it. You know, the director, Andrew Ahn, I think handles it all really well. So that part for me was like an extra bonus. Fire Island is out streaming on Hulu, and I'm going to give it 3.8 out of 5. And the other thing I have this week is the return of The Boys. It's season 3, and whoa, this was a tough one. I mean, it's a great show. I love The Boys. I think it is such a spectacular show, but because they are so good at what they do and mirroring the current political climate, it can be a little bit hard to watch. I feel like because the world we live in is already so extreme and hyperbolized, and, you know, the show's only been out for a couple of years, and yet in that span of time, we have somehow become even more extreme, and therefore the show has sort of mirrored that. It's weird. It's like, I compare it to Veep, sort of, and I remember hearing once the Veep creators and writers talking about how it's so hard when real life is stranger than fiction to do a show that is based in, you know, politics. And so season 3, I think, does a very good job of it. It's just really hard. It's just so hard to watch at some points. You know, they do a great job of talking about the culture of celebrity and like idol worship. And then there's, you know, race and guns and political parties and Nazis and all that stuff. And it's just, it's more violent, gory, sexy. Well, I don't even know if it was sexy, but there's just like sex stuff happening than previous seasons. It continues to escalate. I don't know where they're going to be able to go from here, but yet I trust that they will continue to go further and further until it runs its course. But, you know, I do think one of the little notes I would have for this season is that some of the emotional core is imbalanced. It's there, but because we spend so much time in the political arenas and like with the action and things like that, I do think this season, at least, it felt like it was not as much in the spotlight. And I do think sometimes that is a necessary counterbalance to all the extreme other things that they show in the show. So, but either way, you know, it's fun. It was fun. I'm reticent to say it was fun, but I enjoyed watching it. I had a lot of like, oh my God moments. So The Boys season 3 is starting to stream now on Amazon Prime.